Hi, I'm Tom Bach. I'm the Vice President of the Fulton Park Civic Association and a concerned Greenburgh citizen. I'm joined by Doreen Livson, the President of the Worthington Woodland Civic Association, as well as Bob Bernstein, another concerned citizen and an attorney who intervened on behalf of the taxpayers of Greenburgh and recovered over $1 million for the town. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, let's get right into this. Is this a good proposal for the Greenburgh taxpayers to support?
No, Tom, this is a terrible proposal for Greenburgh taxpayers. The economics make no sense. The money to be received is going to be offset by the taxes that have to be paid by the town in back rent, it'd be back taxes, interest on back taxes, and future taxes. The town will net no real money in exchange for this deal, and there are huge environmental risks on top of that taxpayers may have to bear.
Well, you mentioned millions of dollars, and the supporters of this project are saying that there's $5 million in it for the town of Greenburgh. Isn't this a good thing?
No, Tom, it's not a good thing. And let me explain why the numbers are fuzzy on the part of the town and the town leadership. They say $5 million to the town. That's over a 15-year period. But the fact of the matter is that this was property that was foreclosed upon because of unpaid taxes. There's $1.4 million in back taxes that the town has already laid out. The town has to be reimbursed that money, plus the interest on those back taxes, plus the taxes to be paid over time. On top of that, the increase in rent from year to year is actually only 1% of the net after the taxes. It's a sweetheart deal like I've never seen. And on top of that, the people from Game On are projecting in their business plan to make over $18 million in the first 6 years alone and $55 million over the entire 15-year period. This is a deal that makes absolutely no sense for the taxpayers of the town of Greenburgh.
Thanks, Bob. Doreen, let me ask you this. You're a resident. You live near where
Yes.
this project is going to be constructed. You're also the president of the Civic Association, but you're also a sports mom. Are you supporting this?
No, I am not.
Why not?
This structure does not belong in this community. It is known that this land by Frank's Nursery was filled with pesticides, fungicides. All kinds of environmental issues are now being brought up as why this property is not being correctly remediated. We have to make it safe for the children to play on these fields if this is going to go through.
I understand. Bob, she brings up a good point, that about the environment. Now, there's been a lot of talk that there's been shenanigans regarding all the environmental studies. Can you tell us what that's all about?
Yes, Tom, there have been shenanigans, and it's very unfortunate. The town did the responsible thing a few years ago. It commissioned what's known as a Phase 1 environmental study to identify all of the areas of potential remediation. One of the most important on that site was historic fill and use, which refers to the fact that the land back in the 70s was once farmland. It was filled with landfill from a construction site in White Plains. Nobody knows what was in that landfill. And secondly, the site has been used as a nursery for 40 years. That's 40 years of pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, and fertilizers that are in the ground there. But the town, without any prior disclosure, we learned about this only a few weeks ago, the town decided on its own, Mr. Feiner decided on his own, that they would not study and they would not allow their consultants to study the historic landfill, the fill, and the use on that site. So they were coming up with a phony environmental study to try to minimize the environmental risks. And this is terrible because environmental risks associated with playing fields has been known to cause cancer. In nearby Briarcliff, 10 families have had their children struck with cancer. Some of the children have died. And the cost of remediating those playing fields in Briarcliff is estimated to be at least $1.5 million just to cap the fields, which are not playable anymore, And the cost of cleaning out the dirt, $18 million. Wow. That's the risk that the town is subjecting us to.
Thanks, Bob. Doreen, I know one of the concerns that you have is the size of this project, and I know you brought something to show. Maybe you can display that. So this property is zoned for
Single residence families with a zoning code of no more than 25 feet per house. The height of this bubble is projected to be 83 feet tall, and you can see that this single-family house is quite small compared to this 83-foot structure.
And this is to scale.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it is a very large project. Bob, I'm just curious, did we ever get an appraisal for this property?
Well, for the last few years, Mr. Feiner has denied there was any appraisal, but you know what? We just found out there was one. In 2006, the property was appraised at $1.89 million. But the appraisal, which didn't take into account the cost of remediation, said that in order to get the full value on the site, you needed to sell it or keep it available for sale for at least 12 months. But now we know why Mr. Feiner deep-sixed that appraisal. Because the town only had this property offered for sale for 90 days. 90 days. And before the property was offered for sale, and even before the property was even taken over by the town in a foreclosure, Mr. Feiner was negotiating secretly with the folks from Game On to arrange a lease deal. So it looks like the fix was in. They had the inside track, and this property was never subject to a proper sale to the marketplace so the taxpayers can receive the maximum value.
So Bob, one other thing that's come up is that Paul Feiner has said at various meetings that nothing would be built if there wasn't a full-blown environmental analysis. Can't we just trust Paul at his word?
Well, maybe we could a few years ago, but I don't think we can do so today.
Right.
The court in the Fortress Bible case found that Paul Feiner did not testify truthfully under oath. They found that he destroyed documents, and we now know that he was found guilty of violating the First Amendment rights of a church, an African American church. And that is just reprehensible. And quite frankly, I don't think we can ever take Paul Feiner at his word for anything anymore. So I would urge residents to be very skeptical of assurances by town officials that they're there, you have nothing to be worried about, and this is all for your own good.
So, being that you said that, I'm just curious, are there any other red flags that we need to be aware of?
This entire deal is replete with one red flag after another, beginning with the fact that Frank's itself chose to abandon the property rather than try to sell it because of the environmental risks. The town tried to lease the property as a site for a temporary library. And then when we found out that Paul Feiner had agreed to indemnify Frank's for the entire cost of any remediation, environmental cleanup, that deal had to blow up, and it did. After that, Paul was negotiating secretly, as I said, with the folks from Game On before this property was even offered for sale. These are red flags that should not be accepted by taxpayers. Taxpayers need to send a message to the town, and especially to Paul Feiner, that this is unacceptable behavior.
Thanks, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, you're being asked to vote on November 6th in a referendum to approve this project. We hope that we've raised enough doubt in your mind and presented you with enough facts that you can make an informed decision. This isn't about partisan politics. This isn't about neighborhoods in particular, one versus the other. This is about doing the right thing. We ask you to respect your children, to respect your values, to respect the town. Please vote no on this referendum on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.